Good evening, everyone. It's such a nice day out today, isn't it? I hope everyone got a chance to be outside. Before we get started, let's go ahead and say a prayer. Our God, we thank you for this day, this beautiful weather that we're experiencing, and just the beauty in nature we see as spring is in its full swing here. We thank you for this time to study your word together. Lord, you are merciful and you are worthy of all praise, and we pray that this study would be beneficial to all of us. And we pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, so tonight we're in the book of Joshua. We're due to have Joshua 20 and 21 this evening. And at this point in the book, we've already had our conquest, the division of the land, and now we're starting to settle after we've had the tribal allotments, the land's divided up, and we're transitioning more into settling into the land. And today we're going to read about some more requirements that the Israelites have to do from some instructions they were commanded under Moses regarding the Levitical cities and the cities of refuge. And these were commanded in Numbers and Deuteronomy. So in these two chapters, Joshua 20 and 21, we're going to see first the designation of the six cities of refuge in chapter 20, and then we'll see the total designation of all 48 Levitical cities in chapter 21. So chapter 20 is pretty short. It's only about 9 verses, so I thought it would be good for us to kind of get into some of the background in the book of Numbers, actually, to hear, from the book of Moses, the instruction set out for this. So I'm gonna start reading in Numbers chapter 35, actually. So if you want to turn there, I'll be in Numbers 35, and I'll start reading in verse 9. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the people of Israel, and say to them, when you cross the Jordan into the land of Canaan, then you shall select cities to be cities of refuge for you, that the manslayer who kills any person without intent may flee there. The cities shall be for you a refuge from the avenger, that the manslayer may not die until he stands before the congregation for judgment. And the cities that you give shall be your 6 cities of refuge. You shall give 3 cities beyond the Jordan, and 3 cities in the land of Canaan to be cities of refuge. These 6 cities shall be for refuge for the people of Israel and for the stranger and the sojourner among them, that anyone who kills any person without intent may flee there. But if he struck him down with an iron object so that he died, he is a murderer. The murderer shall be put to death." Verse 17. "And if he struck him down with a stone tool that could cause death and he died, he is a murderer. The murderer shall be put to death. Or if he struck him down with a wooden tool that could cause death, and he died, he is a murderer. The murderer shall be put to death. The avenger of blood shall himself put the murderer to death. When he meets him, he shall put him to death. And if he pushed him out of hatred, or hurled something at him, lying in wait, so that he died, or in enmity struck him down with his hand so that he died, then he who struck the blow shall be put to death. He is a murderer. The avenger of blood shall put the murderer to death when he meets him. But if he pushed him suddenly without enmity, or hurled anything on him without lying in wait, or used a stone that could cause death, and without seeing him dropped it on him so that he died, though he was not his enemy and did not seek his harm, then the congregation shall judge between the manslayer and the avenger of blood, in accordance with these rules. And the congregation shall rescue the manslayer from the hand of the avenger of blood, and the congregation shall restore him to his city of refuge to which he had fled, and he shall live in it until the day the high priest who was anointed, until the death of the high priest who was anointed with holy oil. Verse 26. But if the manslayer shall at any time go beyond the boundaries of his city of refuge to which he fled, and the avenger of blood finds him outside the boundaries of his city of refuge, and the avenger of blood kills the manslayer, he shall not be guilty of blood. For he must remain in his city of refuge until the death of the high priest. But after the death of the high priest, the manslayer may return to the land of his possession. And these things shall be for a statute and rule for you throughout your generations in all your dwelling places. If anyone kills a person, the murderer shall be put to death on the evidence of witnesses, but no person shall be put to death on the testimony of one witness. Moreover, you shall accept no ransom for the life of a murderer who is guilty of death, but he shall be put to death. And you shall accept no ransom for him who has fled to his city of refuge, that he may return to dwell in the land before the death of the high priest. You shall not pollute the land in which you live, for blood pollutes the land, and no atonement can be made for the land for the blood that is shed in it, except by the blood of the one who shed it. You shall not defile the land in which you live, in the midst of which I dwell, for I, the Lord, dwell in the midst of the people of Israel. So another passage that also gives us a little further clarification on the cities of refuge is in Deuteronomy chapter 19, and I would like to also read that at this time. Deuteronomy 19, verse 1. When the Lord your God cuts off the nations whose land the Lord your God is giving you, and you dispossess them and dwell in their cities and in their houses, you shall set apart 3 cities for yourselves in the land that the Lord your God is giving you to possess. You shall measure the distances and divide into 3 parts the area of the land that the Lord your God gives you as a possession, so that any manslayer can flee to them. This is the provision for the manslayer, who by fleeing there may save his life. If anyone kills his neighbor unintentionally, without having hated him in the past, as when someone goes into the forest with his neighbor to cut wood, and his hand swings the axe to cut down a tree, and the head slips from the handle and strikes his neighbor so that he dies, he may flee to one of these cities and live, lest the avenger of blood in hot anger pursue the manslayer and overtake him because the way is long, and strike him fatally, though the man did not deserve to die, since he had not hated his neighbor in the past. Therefore I command you, you shall set apart 3 cities. And if the Lord your God enlarges your territory as he has sworn to your fathers, and gives you all the land that he promised to give to your fathers, provided you are careful to keep all this commandment which I command you today, by loving the Lord your God, and by walking ever in his ways, then you shall add 3 other cities to these 3, lest innocent blood be shed in your land that the Lord your God is giving you for an inheritance, and so the guilt of bloodshed be upon you. But if anyone hates his neighbor and lies in wait and attacks him and strikes him fatally so that he dies, and he flees into one of these cities, then the elders of his city shall send and take him from there and hand him over to the avenger of blood so that he may die. Your eyes shall not pity him, but you shall purge the guilt of innocent blood from Israel so that it may be well with you. I find it really interesting in verse 10 of that passage that kind of the purpose of these cities of refuge is to prevent innocent bloodshed in God's holy land. It seems to be really important, life to God. And innocent bloodshed is something that is abominable. So these cities of refuge really are trying to prevent that, I think. Is there anything that jumped out to anyone in those 2 passages that they want to highlight before we jump into Joshua 20? Any questions Yeah, and the cities of refuge is really a mercy from God to prevent any sort of escalation of a conflict like that. But yeah, I mean, death is serious even if it's unintentional. That seems to be pretty clear. All right, well, let's get into Joshua 20 then. Joshua 20, verse 1. And this is when, the last two passages we read were really kind of the commandment. Here's where the rubber meets the road, and we're actually fulfilling this commandment. So Joshua chapter 20, verse 1. Then the Lord said to Joshua, "Say to the people of Israel, appoint the cities of refuge, of which I spoke to you through Moses, that the manslayer who strikes any person without intent or unknowingly may flee there. They shall be for you a refuge from the avenger of blood. He shall flee to one of these cities and shall stand at the entrance of the gate of the city and explain his case to the elders of that city. Then they shall take him into the city and give him a place, and he shall remain there with them. And if the avenger of blood pursues him, they shall not give up the manslayer into his hand, because he struck his neighbor unknowingly, and did not hate him in the past. And he shall remain in that city until he has stood before the congregation for judgment, until the death of him who is the high priest at the time. Then the manslayer may return to his own town and his own home, to the town from which he fled." So they set apart Kadesh in Galilee in the hill country of Naphtali, and Shechem in the hill country of Ephraim, and Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, in the hill country of Judah. And beyond the Jordan, east of Jericho, they appointed Bezer in the wilderness on the tableland, from the tribe of Reuben, and Ramoth Gilead from the tribe of Gad, and Golan in Bashan from the tribe of Manasseh. These were the cities designated for all the people of Israel and for the strangers sojourning among them, that anyone who killed a person without intent could flee there, so that he might not die by the hand of the avenger of blood till he stood before the congregation. All right. So, does anybody know what the avenger of blood is? What does that mean? Yeah.
Could it be, say, the one who's killed their brother or something?
Yeah, from what I understand, this is a close relative. I think in the Hebrew, it's even a word like redeemer, kind of like in the book of Ruth. It's a kind of a kinsman redeemer. So this is a close relative that would have, if they were truly murdered, they would have the right to be. They would be the one who would be responsible for putting them to death. Very good.
Do you know if we have any accounts where someone actually did that?
Yeah, I tried to find some, but let's see. There's a couple in Kings where they go to the altar and try to be saved by going to the altar, but one of them was a murderer and was killed, and one wasn't, was spared. I can't remember their names, but I don't know that it specifically addresses if there's an instance that is specific to this case. If anyone else has other knowledge on that. Yeah. Right. Yeah, so Jesus didn't get the same mercy as, yeah, very good. Yes.
Gibeonites and Saul killed some of the Gibeonites, and they later came back and he wrongfully killed them. And of course, there's a famine as punishment that later 6 or 7 of Saul's
Very good. Yeah.
It's not premeditated murder in the same sense, because Joab's murder pattern was condemned.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, but as far as like a city of refuge, I don't know that that's happened. Yeah. Good connection. Thanks. All right, so what kind of people can flee to a city of refuge? Yeah. So really anyone who's in the land of Israel, foreigner or Israelite, had this right, whether they were people of Israel or not. So it's kind of interesting. God really cares about death and about people. So and about not polluting the Holy Land, I think. Okay. Yes. Right, yeah, it's really de-escalation. It's really cutting it right there, and trying to prevent it from becoming a bigger, wider issue. So did you guys catch how the 6 cities were distributed throughout the land? What was kind of the reasoning for the positions of some of those cities? Yeah, so there's 3 on each side of the Jordan River, and then they're pretty well separated so that you'd, like you said, would have easy access to get to, whatever city was probably closest to you. So, yeah, God was merciful with that, so that you could get there before the Avenger of Blood could actually catch up and pursue you and catch you. So you would have had probably ample time to be able to make it there before that point. Yeah, it's interesting that the intent really matters with this. Like a murderer would have been, they would be killed because they were a murderer. They wouldn't get this protection. So really, the intent of your heart is what matters. It's what Jesus really teaches. It says, "What comes out of a person is what defiles him. For from within, out of the heart of man, come evil thoughts, sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, coveting, wickedness, deceit, sensuality, envy, slander, pride, foolishness. All these things come from within, and they defile a person." So really, your heart is kind of what gives you that right to be to take refuge in the city of refuge. And yeah, it's about justice. It's not about personal vengeance. We really see how that comes into play. The point of a murderer being put to death is justice. And the avenger is, just trying to fulfill God's justice in that. Any other thoughts on... Oh, yeah, Luke. Anybody have any thoughts on that? Yeah. Yeah, and they're supposed to kind of bear the sin of the people before God. That must kind of play a role, maybe. Another thing is, I kind of like the connection that when Jesus dies, we're actually set free. Yeah.
Just adding to that, it looks like those cities are actually the cities that were designated for the Levites.
Mhm.
So the Levites would be ideally the ones who would appropriate and handle the Mosaic law, and also the priest will has influence over the Levites' judgments there. So that might have something to do with it too.
Yeah, the Levites definitely were kind of supposed to be, the people of God's law and the people of, representing Israel to God, bearing the sin of the people as they, enter into the temple and everything. So, very good.
The more you think about it, it's like a very strange concept because like today, accidental murder and manslaughter, like you still face time, you face consequences, get sent to jail. But imagine having the mercy, as you said, of being able to still live, be productive, have neighbors and friends and part of a society. You're not shunned into like a jail or prison. It's just such a novel concept, especially like in our world, that you have a chance to still live a life even though something tragic happened. I just wonder what would happen if you guys like did something like that. It's just it couldn't be done without God's grace and like without God as the head of this. But with God in the head and with that as the focus, it gives second chances and kind of.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, I think this kind of underscores how sacred life is. Even this accidental killing, it has a pretty serious consequence. But of course, they're spared. But yeah, their life is changed dramatically. Yeah, very good. Any other thoughts on the city of refuge before we get into more of the broader Levitical cities? And we can come back to it at the end if you have a thought on it. So, all right. So Joshua 21. I want to do kind of the same thing and get into some of the commandments in the books of Moses before we get right into Joshua 21. So if you'd want to turn to Numbers 18, just a couple verses there, or if you just want to listen, that's fine too. I'm going to read from Numbers 18, starting in verse 20. And the Lord said to Aaron, "You shall have no inheritance in their land, neither shall you have any portion among them. I am your portion and your inheritance among the people of Israel. To the Levites I have given every tithe in Israel for an inheritance, in return for their service that they do, their service in the tent of meeting, so that the people of Israel do not come near the tent of meeting, lest they bear their sin and die. But the Levites shall do the service of the tent of meeting, and they shall bear their iniquity. It shall be a perpetual statute throughout your generations, and among the people of Israel they shall have no inheritance. For the tithe of the people of Israel, which they present as a contribution to the Lord, I have given to the Levites for an inheritance. Therefore I have said of them that they shall have no inheritance among the people of Israel." And I'm going to jump to Numbers 35, just a couple of verses there too, verses 1 through 8. And this is really going to go over kind of the instructions for how to structure and assign these Levitical cities throughout the land. So Numbers 35 in verse 1. The Lord spoke to Moses in the plains of Moab by the Jordan at Jericho, saying, "Command the people of Israel to give to the Levites some of the inheritance of their possession as cities for them to dwell in. And you shall give to the Levites pasture lands around the cities. The cities shall be theirs to dwell in, and their pasture lands shall be for their cattle and for their livestock and for all their beasts. The pasture lands of the cities which you shall give to the Levites shall reach from the wall of the city outward 1,000 cubits and around. And you shall measure outside the city on the east side 2,000 cubits, on the south side 2,000 cubits, on the west side 2,000 cubits, and on the north side 2,000 cubits, the city being in the middle. This shall belong to them as pasture land for their cities. The cities that you give to the Levites shall be the 6 cities of refuge, where you shall permit the manslayer to flee. And in addition, you shall give them 42 cities. All the cities that you give to the Levites shall be 48, with their pasture lands. And as for the cities that you shall give from the possession of the people of Israel, from the larger tribes you shall take many, and from the smaller tribes you shall take few, in proportion to the inheritance that it inherits, shall give of its city to the Levites." I had a lot of questions about that passage, why it was 1,000 cubits and then it said 2,000 cubits. I kind of think that maybe that's a way of them like kind of buffering that to make sure they get it right. I'm not really sure why the difference there, but I thought that was kind of interesting. And I think it's really neat that the larger tribes are giving more cities than the smaller tribes. It's kind of reminds me of our giving, how you give as you prosper. Some people prosper more than others, and just really fair with this commandment here, that you'll be in proportion to the land that you inherit, how many cities you give. So just a couple neat details there. Did anybody have any additional things to bring to light from those two passages before we get into Joshua 21? Well, we will continue in Joshua 21 then. Then the heads of the fathers' houses of the Levites came to Eleazar the priest and to Joshua the son of Nun, and to the heads of the fathers' houses of the tribes of the people of Israel. And they said to them at Shiloh in the land of Canaan, "The Lord commanded through Moses that we be given cities to dwell in, along with their pasture lands for our livestock." So by command of the Lord, the people of Israel gave to the Levites the following cities and pasture lands out of their inheritance. The lot came out for the clans of the Kohathites. So those Levites who were descendants of Aaron the priest received by lot from the tribes of Judah, Simeon, and Benjamin 13 cities. And the rest of the Kohathites by lot from the clans of the tribe of Ephraim, from the tribe of Dan, and the half-tribe of Manasseh 10 cities. The Gershonites received by lot from the clans of the tribe of Issachar, from the tribe of Asher, from the tribe of Naphtali, and from the half-tribe of Manasseh and Bashan, 13 cities. The Merarites, according to their clans, received from the tribe of Reuben, the tribe of Gad, and the tribe of Zebulun, 12 cities. These cities and their pasture lands the people of Israel gave by lot to the Levites, as the Lord had commanded through Moses. Out of the tribe of the people of Judah and the tribe of the people of Simeon, they gave the following cities mentioned by name, which went to the descendants of Aaron, one of the clans of the Kohathites, who belonged to the people of Levi, since the lot fell to him first. They gave them Kiriath Arba being the father of Anak, that is Hebron, in this hill country of Judah, along with its pasture lands around it. But the fields of the city and its villages had been given to Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, as his possession. And to the descendants of Aaron the priest they gave Hebron, the city of refuge for the manslayer, with its pasture lands, Libnah with its pasture lands, Jatir with its pasture lands, Eshtemoa with its pasture lands, Holon with its pasture lands, Deber with its pasture lands, Ain with its pasture lands, Judah with its pasture lands, Beth Shemesh with its pasture lands, 9 cities out of these 2 tribes. Then out of the tribe of Benjamin, Gibeon with its pasture lands, Geba with its pasture lands, Anathoth with its pasture lands, and Almon with its pasture lands, 4 cities. The cities of the descendants of Aaron the priests were in all 13 cities with their pasture lands. As to the rest of the Kohathites, belonging to the Kohathite clans of the Levites, the cities allotted to them were out of the tribe of Ephraim. To them were given Shechem, the city of refuge for the manslayer, with its pasture lands in the hill country of Ephraim, Gezer with its pasture lands, Kibzaim with its pasture lands, Beth-horon with its pasture lands, 4 cities. And out of the tribe of Dan, El-Teki with its pasture lands, Gibbethon with its pasture lands, Aijalon with its pasture lands, Gath-Rimmon with its pasture lands, 4 cities. And out of the half-tribe of Manasseh, Taanach with its pasture lands, Gath-Rimmon with its pasture lands, 2 cities. The cities of the clans of the rest of the Kohathites were 10 in all with their pasture lands. And to the Gershonites, one of the clans of the Levites, were given out of the half-tribe of Manasseh, Golan in Bashan with its pasture lands, the city of refuge for the manslayer, and Beeshterah with its pasture lands, 2 cities. And out of the tribe of Issachar, Kishion with its pasture lands, Daberath with its pasture lands, Jarmuth with its pasture lands, and Ganim with its pasture lands, 4 cities. And out of the tribe of Asher, Mishal with its pasture lands, Abaddon with its pasture lands, Helkath with its pasture lands, Rahab with its pasture lands, 4 cities. And out of the tribe of Naphtali, Kedesh in Galilee with its pasture lands, the city of refuge for the manslayer, Hamath Dor with its pasture lands, and Kartan with its pasture lands, 3 cities. The cities of the several clans of the Gershonites were in all 13 cities with their pasture lands. And to the rest of the Levites, the Merarite clans, were given out of the tribe of Zebulun, Jokneam with its pasture lands, Karta with its pasture lands, Dimnah with its pasture lands, Nahalal with its pasture lands, 4 cities. And out of the tribe of Reuben, Bezer with its pasture lands, Jahaz with its pasture lands, Kedemoth with its pasture lands, and Meriphoth with its pasture lands, 4 cities. And out of the tribe of Gad, Ramoth and Gilead with its pasture lands, the city of refuge for the manslayer, Mahanaim with its pasture lands, Heshbon with its pasture lands, Jazer with its pasture lands, 4 cities in all. As for the cities of the several Merarite clans, that is, the remainder of the clans of the Levites, those allotted to them were in all 12 cities. The cities of the Levites in the midst of the possession of the people of Israel were in all 48 cities with their pasture lands. These cities each had its pasture lands around it. So it was with all these cities. Thus the Lord gave to Israel all the land that he swore to give to their fathers, and they took possession of it, and they settled there. And the Lord gave them rest on every side, just as he had sworn to their fathers. Not one of all their enemies had withstood them, for the Lord had given all their enemies into their hands, and not one word of all the good promises that the Lord had made to the house of Israel had failed. All came to pass. Well, that's a good ending to that long section, right? Not one word of the good promises that the Lord had made had failed. Wow, that's a lot. What did we just experience there?
Did a good job reading.
Thank you. Yeah, and there's no detail left out here, right? So, every city and the pasture lands are mentioned, and I mean that's God's promise is being fulfilled. It's exactly right. Yes.
So something I wouldn't call it a contradiction, maybe a juxtaposition. So way back in Genesis, with the sons of Jacob, his daughter Dinah is raped, and the brothers are like, yeah, you can totally have her sister, but you all have to be circumcised first. And then while they're all still in pain, Levi and Simeon go kill them all. And for that reason, Jacob says, hey, you're not going to have your own inheritance. You're going to be spread over the land. And then to see that come to fruition, but for the Levites at least, in such a way that they're still given like these positions of honor as priests, high priests, caretakers of the tabernacle. It's a weird sort of thing in my head, I guess, for such evil to, I guess, maybe lead to or be used for such good. Maybe it has more to do with who Moses and Aaron were, that God chose to do this for all the Levites. I don't know what the answer is, but it does weird things in the brain.
Yeah, that's hard to sort all of that out. They definitely, Levites have a kind of a special role that's maybe a little different than the rest of the tribes there. Yeah, very good. Yeah, Jordan?
And my comment was on the same line of thinking. And I was going to bring up, it's interesting how God takes the manslayer and transforms him into the shelter of the manslayer. Even if you look at Moses, he kills a man before he flees Egypt. And God is taking all the evil and transforming it into good protection, service to the people, not only of the land of Israel, but like Dave mentioned earlier, the sojourners, the foreigners, everyone has this protection.
Oh, yeah, great connection. Yeah, thanks for bringing that to light. Yeah, Glenn?
That is an interesting, very interesting. Of course, Simeon's, it does get land. They're absorbed within Judah. But Levi gets this position. Tyler's talked about this some before, I know, but in Exodus 32, golden calf,
it's not too different from, the story of Israel as a whole, and even, our story. We don't have perfect lives, but we're able to serve, and, we have the Spirit within us. Yeah, very good. God will use, imperfect people to fulfill what he needs.
I think the idea of the Levites being scattered around cities in Israel is an interesting concept. To me actually mirrors how we were arranged. Traveling over this is that tabernacle, we have God in the center, or surrounding. And as they've taken their land, it's not that God is just going to be placed in Jerusalem, temple eventually. Everyone has to go travel in. Instead, he's putting his holy people but Levites, priests especially, throughout the region as well. So you have it's like areas where my people were everywhere. So that's not exactly a perfect correlation, but it's interesting that God wants his priests to be throughout the land, not just all concentrated in temple.
Yeah, that is a really good point, because up until this point, they're all kind of been together. Now they're settling and spreading out. And, yeah, that's really good. Yes, sir.
One of the words that we kept hearing almost to the point of annoyance was pasture lands. Like, why is that significant? Well, I think it's significant for a couple of reasons. One is obviously the Levites were allowed to own a lot of land. And another reason is God wanted each one of these cities to be kind of self-sufficient and have pasture land, grazing for the cattle and their livestock. But what's really significant is when you read earlier the dimensions of this, they were 2,000 cubits. 2,000 cubits is exactly 0.57 miles, which in Jewish history is a 7 days journey. And so you've got a city with Levitical priesthood that are surrounded by a pasture that on all four sides is a 7 days journey. That's all part of the Hebrew. Coincidence? I personally don't think so. So that's why the pasture land and the dimensions, it just seems like such a trivial thing, but it's all part of God's plan. 2,000 cubits is a 7 days journey, which to me is very important to a Jewish city, especially one that's full of priests.
Thank you for sharing that detail. Yeah, I didn't realize that. That's helpful to see. And yeah, the pasture lands definitely are significant, especially with the civilization with grazing animals. That's serious, important land there. So yeah, every city was mentioned with its pasture lands, and then then it's mentioned there's 48 cities, and they each had a pasture land. It's like, I think we already knew that, but it's the fulfillment of God's plan, and it's complete and in all its detail. Yes, sir.
Part of that is also providing for the Levites and the priests so that they can play that role of serving the people and being that connection between the people and God. And later on we'll see when the people forsake the Levites. I forget off the top of my head which book it is, but they're kind of called out. Part of the whole breakdown, the entire kingdom of Israel. I'm sure we'll get to it.
Very good. All right. Any other thoughts?
Kind of going on Grant's point earlier about it being spread out, God's people being spread out, you almost think of like the churches, God's people, us, spread out throughout the world, where the Levites or the priests now, they can help influence the world. And there just is that wisdom of not being all it wouldn't be good if all of God's people were in one spot, but instead we across
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks for bringing that out. You know, Jesus, commissions people to go out into all the world, and yeah, it's really good to spread out God's love to all of humanity. And that's especially clear with the cities of refuge being available for the sojourner as well. I really like the ending of that chapter, where not one word of all the good promises that the Lord had made to the house of Israel failed, and everything came to pass. If that's true, what are some promises that we can bank on from the Lord, and we know that they're going to come to pass? What are some things we can put our trust in and our hope in? Yes, sir.
Just discussing this past week is with the resurrection.
Yeah.
So that was Nehemiah. That's where I was thinking of. For the neglected ones.
Oh, okay. Yeah, very good. Yeah, we have the hope of resurrection. That's a promise. The forgiveness of sins, God's presence, eternal life, victory over sin. These are all promises that God's made to us. Well, I think that's about all I have for tonight. Is any final notes before we get closed here? All right, thank you, everybody.